You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. All right. Okay. We are live on Pan-African Daily TV. Thank you all for joining. Oh my God. I'm welcoming you again. And I can see your numbers because we have one big professor with us for the first time on Pan-African Daily TV, and we're looking so forward to sharing a wonderful conversation with him. So, but how are you all doing? How are you doing? Apart from that, there's been a lot of breaking. As you know, the AU recently had its election of the chairperson for 2025, and I did share a couple of information with you. But I'm coming earlier than our guest who is already here in studio with me, just to give you some updates on the AU elections 2025. I know you've been seeing the post. You followed us on Pan-African Daily TV Facebook pages and on our YouTube channel, so you get the information already. You do know that the AU held its 38th session this weekend in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and I followed that event live. So it was a whole massive thing. You know, sometimes when we talk about the African Union, we talk about it like a country. We talk about it like our small meetings that we go gather, sit around, hang out, and talk and speak, right? We talk about it and gossip about it as if it's just, I don't know what I can say. If you already in your mindset don't understand the magnitude of African Union, it is difficult for you to even understand the challenges that the continent is going through and that leadership. Of course, I also used to think like that with little information until I start reading about it. Because we as Africans, most of us, or most of what is happening, we don't know about our continent. Just like we don't know our history, and we don't even know the leadership on the continent. You see, now because of social media and other factors, we just pick information from left, center, right, and post it and push it without actually doing proper research. The African Union has an official website, which we all know. Just go Google or anywhere and type African Union. You're going to get into the website. And when you get into the website, you can see all the projects and all the history and everything that union is about. Now, if you are a European, just think about yourself like, you criticize the European Union. Or if you are in the body of the United Nations, and you just talk about just the little things that we talk about without actually knowing the backbone. So this 38th session gave a lot of information. You could see that massive setup, and you would fear what the leadership is going through. You would have respect for their work and their job, because it's easy. Imagine we cannot even keep our single homes. We can't even run a family. And we talk about running a nation, not just a nation, a continent that is the second largest in the world. So, talking about African Union, I think I'm going to be doing a special lectures only on that, because what I discovered, I would like to teach you, or I would like to keep you informed. I would like to inspire and motivate you to be also, to be on that line of not just talking, but knowing what we're talking about. Now, one of the precarious things that actually motivated or inspired me, and I sat back and I'm like, wow, this is big, is the speech of His Excellency Mustafa Faki, the outgoing AU chairperson that has been there for 8 years. I mean, second terms, right? I mean, when I listened to the speech from the beginning to the end, I got chilled. I got goosebumps. And I said, this is a leader that we have talked about how, I don't know, I mean, really little with no information and no ideas about the work that they carry, about the challenges that they go through. But when I listened to the speech, of course, I had a little bit of, idea. I run a mega organization myself. I deal with people every day. I deal with millions of followers and crowd every day. And I know what it just I have a clue of what it takes to maintain a balance with who hears what, who knows what, and who talks what. So I have a clue a little bit. So when we go into the agenda 2025 of the elections, I mean, it gave a lot of insight and pertinent points and information about the African Union AU elections. Of course, I did post already the incoming leader of the African Union Commission, right? The chairperson of the African Union Commission. And this time the House goes to Djibouti. And when I look at him and I listen to the outgoing AU chairperson's speech and the challenges they went through, I just have a lot of pity for him coming to be on that board in these times when Africa is critically, facing all sorts of confrontations from all fronts. And to get this leader say, I will sit on that body, I will manage the affairs of the 55 countries and its diaspora. Congratulations to this leadership and taking responsibility. This is what we call responsibility. Okay. You see, we never even saw him coming. There were no lobbying and no political discourse around it. Everybody knew that the former president of Kenya was going to be the leader, because there was a lot of even when I at the AU session last year in Ethiopia where I assisted, you could see all his posters and everything. I think I even posted all the banners lobbying to be voted. But of course, there was no lobby, there was nothing going on, and he just came up. I know a lot of people are asking questions. Yes, Mustafa Faki was His Excellency. Faki was a Muslim, and from the why again this other one? I'm telling you, people, the stage at which Africa is now, for someone to accept the leadership of the African Union, you must be out of this space to accept. Okay, the challenges are enormous. So, what am I saying? I am calling on all of us Africans and people of goodwill to stand behind the African Union leadership. Otherwise, we will not have a union. And you know what I'm saying. We literally are facing challenges of not having a continent, talk less of having a union. Okay? You see the breakup that are coming left, center, right, even from within. That's why our topic for today, neo-colonialism in amongst Africans, is very important with our scholar. Okay, so and now you see, oh, okay, it's time. I'll be bringing in a scholar shortly, but you see what happened exactly. Immediately, the results were proclaimed. And Africans are shocked to their bones to say some Kenyan MPs are saying they want to exit the African Union. To count on what? To exit the African Union, to count on what, for God's sake? And to be a part of European Union? Or to be a part of what? What are you counting on to say we're gonna exit African Union? Please go. African Union is a global powerhouse, the most relevant on the continent and in the world at large. Because sometimes when we just sit and talk, all African leaders are going out in the world, is because the world needs Africa and they invite their leaders to their home. Have you ever seen any African leader bother to invite anybody to their home? Because they don't need that. They're comfortable where they are. So when we want to speak, we have to speak with some kind of respect and like people who understand what leadership and authority is all about. And now this is what is going on, making the news and the trends. A section of Kenyan MPs protest Raila Odinga's election loss. now demand exit from AU. I don't think they want to. They are serious to leave to leave the AU. Do you demand exit? You just leave. If the house is too hot, you leave. Okay, nobody has to send you out. You just realize I don't fit in anymore. I just need to quit. All right. So those are some of the breaking events that happened this weekend concerning the speech of His Excellency Mustafa Faki. I'll look for another time this week and we go through and analyze the speech with Ambassador Tony Jaja or some of our elders that are here. But tonight, let us welcome on this show, you know, our our elder, our scholar, our Panamanian, Baba Nijala Amhose Bajano Mwata Nubian, Mwata Nubian. Yes, I mean it's his first time of being on Pan African Daily TV as a first-time guest, but it's not his first time for following Pan African Daily. He's been the biggest fan of Pan African Daily TV, and now today we are having the privilege to have him live on the show. And I love his topic. His topic is a simple, and that's the reason why I actually brought the background of what happened in the Africa at the Africa Union, and also the feedbacks that we're having from there to actually show you the importance of what we're going to be discussing today, which is neo-colonialism in Africans amongst us Black people. We should stop. Or while we do the blame of the colonialism, we have Baba Nigella said we have Africans or neo-colonialists that have the same face like us. So we have to fix our house. We have to be conscious of it. We have to know the dynamics of it. We have also to be careful not to be a part of it. So we thank Baba Wata Nubian and his and yeah, can you hear me? Can you
Yes,
hear
I
me,
can.
Baba?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, and nice to have you on the show.
My honor to be on the show that you have set precedent for, and that I follow in the footsteps of other great Pan African leaders. So I'm humble in that sense. But I also have to speak the truth. And part of that is to tell you about myself, and then I will get into that. I'm an African born in Panama, in the province of Cologne, on the Atlantic coast, parents of African descendants from all over the Caribbean. I have family in, my father was from Jamaica, came over in the building of the Panama Canal. My mother was born in Panama from her parents who came over from Barbados. I have an aunt in Cuba. I have cousins in Colombia. I have family in Costa Rica. So again, that African Western diaspora piece I am with. I immigrated to the United States in 1964, and I've been a resident of the what we call the Great Republic of Brooklyn since then. I am a husband, a proud husband with my wife, Sandy, and I'm a father of my proud daughter, Ayana. I am a practitioner of Ma'at, the Nguzu Saba, and I celebrate Kwanzaa as well as other African holidays. My experience is one of continued learning, but I have been fortunate to connect with other Africans and founded the Pan African Roundtable. And as the creator of that, it's a Zoom gathering, a Zoom African gathering, which started during the pandemic in the United States, where we started talking about emergency preparedness, and the topics expanded to how do we secure our families, how do we share information with each other, how do we, in a sense, work as a community since we are in this condition together. That was in 2020. We were able to establish a farm to to table type of organic produce from upstate New York with Black farmers out of that example. I'm also the founder of a collective I call Nubian Messengers, and we use the concept of African pulse, which was conceived by Randy Weston, who also had Panamanian parentage but grew up in Brooklyn. And that African pulse is the expression that all Africans have, whether you do it on the Pan African Daily TV, whether you do it singing, whether you do it in dance, whether you do it in music, poetry, photography, any expression that comes out of you is an African pulse, as Randy Weston teaches us. I'm a practitioner also of Kwanzaa, which is an African American celebration using African concepts to keep us in practice. I'm also a proud member of the Men of Soul, which is a Black men's self-help development collective. We started in Brooklyn, but we're now expanded throughout the United States. I'm also a member of African Jegna Collective, which is a collective of Black professionals and non-professionals who are working on the concept that we need to educate ourselves, we need to share the things that we do, and we need to practice those things that we say we want to have. Among other things, I'm a percussionist and a spoken word artist, and now I'm getting into doing more writing. I feel very fortunate to have come this far in my 74 years on this earth to be able to see the changes that we have experienced. Having been here in 1964, I've seen a lot of things in not only New York City, but around the world. I was also fortunate during my academic years. I attended the State University of Stony Brook, who, by the way, presently has an African. Stony Brook was the first state university of New York that implemented a Black Studies program in 1969. Uh, Today, it has had a variety of chairperson representing the Pan-African world, and presently its chairperson is from Cameroon, by the way, Dr. Denang. So I was very fortunate and got a lot of my experience in organizing and learning about the African diaspora, being an activist at Stony Brook. I was then able to travel to Nigeria to spend a year abroad in my junior year at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. And I will talk about that a little bit later in terms of being physically present at that time in 1972, just after the Biafra Nigerian War. What else? In terms of my pastime, I'm a music lover and now budding writer, developing writer. I consider myself a student of African history, meaning Pan-African in a Pan-African way. I attended public schools in New York City, as well as public colleges in uh, New York. I have a master's of social work from the Hunter School of Social Work. Worked for the city of New York as a manager for 28 years, almost 28 years, and then retired and went to work for a nonprofit community-based organization in Brooklyn, which at that time it was the largest Black social service agency doing senior centers in New York State. I've since retired and devoted myself to doing what I call raising a little hell and educating myself more about our Africans present. So I want to greet everyone with the word Sawubona, which is an African greetings, meaning that I see you, you are valuable to me, and I not only interact with you, but I value you. And usually the response is Shiboka, which is I see
Sawubona.
you and I value. Yes, Sawubona. So I give thanks. I say Amen, Amen Ra, Ashe, Hallelujah, Medase, and Asante Sana.
Mm.
So how do I proceed, Dr. Tata?
First of all, I want to thank you for your elaborate experiences and backgrounds and from professional to non-professional, but also you as a career artist. And like we say all the time, some people say God is an artist. So we are very honored to have you join our list of scholars and teachers, and particularly coming from a background that is so vast and broad, and from a community that we would really love to know more about, the Afro or African Panamanians. I love
Yes.
the way you introduced yourself when you said, I am an African born in Panama. You
Mhm.
didn't say you are a Panamanian. Why do you think? So my first question would be like, why do you think the name which we give to ourselves matter a lot in knowing who we are, how we
Mhm.
call ourselves, and articulate what is the essence and importance to actually attaching to our identity?
Thank you for that question. So let me begin in Panama. My grandparents haven't migrated to Panama for the building of the canal. My father haven't migrated to Panama in the building. Came as a teenager to help build the Panama Canal. Uh, Gave me a a wide experience in a Pan African sense around the African Western diaspora that started me off. I was in Panama a proud West Indian, and I often tell that story. And that proud being proud of being West Indian, unknown to me at that time, was a label, a definition that was imposed on us by one of the most deceitful, crooked person, Cristobal Colon or Christopher Columbus, who used some African explorers to get another way to get to India, to get the riches from India and bring it back to and bring it to Spain. So he went west when everybody was going east, leaving Spain, and he was told that there were explorers who knew that they had traveled west and encountered other lands. So when he traveled west with the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria three boats, they arrived on what's now Haiti and Dominican Republic, called Hispaniola, and saw the indigenous people there who looked like East Indians, were brown like East Indians, and said, "Oh, we travel west, so these must be West Indians." And that label got attached to Africans who got imported into the West Indies for enslavement. And it's funny, they don't call most of the East Indians who came later on West Indians. They still call them East Indians, but Africans have to be changed. So part of that upbringing was, you call me a bad name that about West Indian, and I'm ready to fight. It was only during my uh, college years that I learned through Dr. Ben Jakanan, Nana Martin and John Henry Clark and others, that it was a misnomer. We were mislabeled, misidentified to being something that European settlers wanted, which was anything but African, right? So eventually, when I changed, and I still have arguments with uh, whether you're whether you have Jamaican citizenship, Panamanian citizenship, Colombian citizenship, and you're of African descent, they still will fall back on, no, I'm not African, I'm West Indian or I'm Colombian, making no distinction
Mhm.
between citizenship and lineage. So
Mhm.
to me, Y cuando yo hablo español, it really throws people off. So first, the name, when they see, what the name, Nubian, uh, how can you be speaking Spanish like that? And I tell them I'm a Cologne boy. And they know now that I was born in Panama or that I have some connection to Panama. So my parents having been both from the Caribbean, Jamaica, my father, and my mother being born in Panama, we spoke both English and Spanish. In fact, I could not, although I spoke English in my household, I could not read and write English until I was about 7, when I went to English speaking school to learn how to read English. And then I went to Spanish school to learn how to read Spanish. So I have that mixture. Yo puedo hablar español o inglés. And that really messes people up, Then they challenge you, like, how that's like Mwata Nubian is not a Panamanian name. And so as soon as they see that, they have either that you're African American or you're from Africa. And I said, long distance way, I am from Africa. I'm connected to Africa, although I was born in Panama. So if you want to distinguish nationality and citizenship from my cultural and lineage, then that's something we can talk about. So I hope that kind of answers your question. And coming to the United States was a
Very.
big deal because we had to, at that time, if you spoke English, and this is in the 60s, the 50s and the 60s, if you spoke English, you were labeled and you were discriminated against because it was associated with the American side. And I'll come to that piece about how America, once they took over the building of the Panama Canal in 1903, established a system of apartheid, racial apartheid in Panama. It wasn't called black and colored, it was called gold and silver. The gold, the gold was for non-African, non-Caribbean people, and they paid those workers in gold. They established gold commissaries, gold barbershops, gold movie houses that you would use your gold dollars to pay and attend. African people and Caribbean people and some indigenous people were paid in silver, which was valued less than gold at that time in 1903. And therefore, you had to attend the silver commissary and the silver movie house and the silver doctor and the silver healthcare system. So they were very smart in not establishing black and colored. They call it gold and silver, but it was still apartheid.
This is deep.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Our topic today is neo-colonialism in Blacks or in Africans. Let's get into the topic. Like, why did you come up with that essay? And you
Okay.
wrote a lot about it. You've really been writing a lot. I've never seen such a write out. And I want to also give a feedback from our brother Joey, who says you really, really look great at your age. Telling people that you're 74, honestly speaking, is not. It's like it's not true. And so yes.
Well, let me start off by just commenting um, on your experience with the updates in the African Union.
Yes.
The fact that some Kenyans, some, not all, some Kenyans are talking about withdrawing from the AU
Mm-hmm.
is a manifestation of the infection, the disease of neocolonialism. Here you have, and I call him Brother Odinga, who has a lineage of his father, Oginga Odinga, fighting for the liberation of his people principally in Kenya, but across the African continent. And just because he lost an election, he wants to pick up his marble and leave, or is open to probably picking up his marble and leave. Well, when he lost the election in Kenya for president, he didn't say all the Kenyans should leave Kenya because I lost the election.
Absolute.
I mean, this is the type of conflating that gets these bonus, and I will come to that word, bona. Remember that, bona, bonus, because we are clear about the 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 importance that they put is in themselves, not their people, not
Mm,
African people. And Kenya has one of the youngest population in the African continent. It's not the youngest, that's for Niger, but Niger, Kenya, and South Africa have top five age groups under 25. In the case of Niger, under 20. So if you're using this as an example of how you guide up and coming citizens of your country, and if you guide that by the lineage of your forefathers, they will be rolling in their grave.
mm,
They will be rolling in their grave to see that my son is behaving in a very un-African way just because you lost an election. Odinga lost elections when he was combating with Kenyatta, but he did not pick up and say, people follow me, let's leave Kenya. He fought for Kenyan sovereignty, right? And he fought all of his life for that. So his son has no perspective, or is being swayed by other perspective to not follow his father's legacy in that respect. So that's what I wanted to say on the AU. Like you said, where they're going to go, they cannot follow the principle of the Sahel three, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, because they don't have the resources, they don't have the following to say, well, we want to establish a separate. What they're going to do is establish a separate state in Kenya and break up Kenya now, or they're going to be, or they're going to ask uh, the current president of the United States to fly them to another country and establish territory there. I mean, that's the contentiousness of bonus. So I'll come to that in a minute. So you asked me, how did I come about doing this? I first heard about this back in 2023 when, uh, and I have to give some, I will occasionally give some breakdown on my use of certain language. So for the president of the racist Euro-settler state, which is the United States, the current president I call Cult 4547, CULT, because he's a cult leader. And he was the 45th president, and now he's the 47th president. So
mm,
Cult 4547.
mm.
And every time that I use his surname, I slap myself because that's to bring me back to reality. So Cult 45, having won having been a candidate in the, what I call, not the Republican Party in the United States, but the Trump Publican Party, because that's what it is. It is now completely different. And I will come to that explanation in a minute. There were a few Black individuals or individuals of African descent who were like, yeah, Trump did this and Trump did that. And therefore, they were supporters of him if he should run for election. And I said, this is crazy. It's, how could you look at this man's record having served as the 45th president, and believe that he is good for people of African descent, black people in the United States or anywhere in the world. And lo and behold, they came up with their own machination because it wasn't factual. Some of them were saying, oh, Colt 45 sent us a check during the COVID-19. The United States Congress approved issuing a check to individuals throughout the United States. What Colt 45 did was very, very uh, a good a good thing for him. He did. Usually when you get a check from the United States government, it's signed by the treasurer of the United States, not the president of the United States. So what he did during his tenure, he said, I want to sign every check so that it looks like he gave people the check. And that's the fallacy that so many of us are falling for. They got a check and they see Donald Trump name at the bottom and they think Donald Trump reached into his pocket and gave them this money. That's how naive they were, right? Others were saying he's a businessman and he knows how to run business. Never mind that he had to declare bankruptcy 6 times and went to court over 11 times around his financing of his corporations. Okay. Never mind that he was sued by New York State around falsehoods of his businesses and had to pay New York State taxpayers almost $5 million, and he still owes that money. Never mind that he's prohibited from doing business in New York State because of the lies and the misuse of the finance system in New York State. So those are example of 2 examples of how some black people, a few black people, got misguided, or that he's a man who speaks his mind. Well, a Jegna of mine says his mother told him, when you open your mouth, your brain is on display. And when they open their mouth and say that Colt 45 speaks his mind, when this man cannot hold a coherent paragraph, never mind a sentence, he talks as though, he is going to take over this, he's going to take over that, but doesn't say that, he cheated on his wife, doesn't say that he got sued for bad practice in business, doesn't say that he lied to the courts, doesn't say that he lied to people by telling them falsehoods, but he speaks his mind. Well, for all intents and purpose, anyone can speak their mind, but there's a division between speaking truth and speaking falsehood. Right? And in fact, I had to during that time start composing information about the lies that and the distortions that Code 45 was having. The Washington Post, during the 4 years that Code 45 was in office, accounted for 33,000 lies and distortions during his tenure as president. And that's just the Washington Post counting. Okay. The lies that he told around how he punished immigrants, children, separated families, the lies that he told about what he did with the documents that he stole from the White House and kept in Mar-a-Lago, and lied to the FBI and lied to the courts that he had given them every document. So you can speak your mind. Anybody can speak their mind. But again, what's the standard? We are not upholding him to any standard. And part of that standard is that if you speak truth, then you have to be factually based. And that's something that Colt 45 cannot do, has not done, still continues to do. Right? And that's something that I think we have to keep in mind when we look at excuses that people give for supporting him. Right now, you're seeing examples of uh, some quote Latinos unquote who are who were he's going to do this for me and he's going to do this for me and he's going to take care of immigration, and now they're crying because prices are increasing and they're being deported whether they're citizens or not, just because they speak Espanol or they speak Creole or they speak Portuguese, never mind their citizenship. They round them up just because you're with others and you get deported. So we have to continue to uh, identify those missing, that type of misinformation. It's like if he keeps saying, if Colt 45 keeps saying, I'm the greatest thing that ever happened to you, and he tells you that 10,000 times, you're apt to believe him rather than check it out and see where is it that he's great for you. I hope that that answers that piece. So that's where I started with this essay, and I've been writing and revising and writing and revising and writing and revising to the point where I had to. I started with a 4-page essay, and it's now in 2 essays of about 120 pages, because I had to give a framework as to what do I mean by Pan-Africanism? What do I mean by uh, the way the way we look at our historical condition when we talk about the African Holocaust, when we talk about how imperialism, colonialism, and neo-colonialism impacted the African population at home, which is Africa, and abroad, which is the African diaspora as well as the Eastern diaspora. And that led me to say, well, how come we focus so much on the quote transatlantic slave trade, which I will also cover as a misnomer, and we don't talk about the Arab Muslim slave trade, right? And I said, well, we weren't slaves, we were prisoners of war. And that's where I had to put in uh, that's where I had to put in, sorry, somebody's calling. That's why I had to put in definitions. And that's why when I sent you my thing, I had a terms and definition. So prisoners, if we start with the concept of ma'afa, which is a suffering, and the ma'afa was not a suffering for African people only through the Atlantic side of the slave trade, but also on the eastern side. So so that revealed to me that we look at our history as our story. That's the definition. I call it our story, as Professor Bello, who you have also interviewed, uh, Bayina Bello says, this is our story, not his story. Okay? Just to make that distinction. The the So I said it was an invasion, it was a war, and it was slave trade. So I renamed the western part of that experience uh, the transatlantic invasion and slave war. And I named the Arab side on East Africa the Arab Muslim invasion and slave trade, invasion, war, and slave trade. So I made a distinction that we suffered a Holocaust, which brings me to the point of, well, how come uh, Jewish people have the Holocaust, not a Holocaust, the Holocaust, as though they were the only one who suffered a Holocaust? And I'm saying, well, that's about definitions, right? That's self-determination. Who defines you? Who defines your terms? Africans suffered a Holocaust. And how come we can't even own that word? How come we can't even use that word as though some people have rights to the words and we don't. So I renamed it the Ma'afo African Holocaust, both on the western side and on the eastern side.
Hmm.
So on the western side, which most of us are aware of in the diaspora, in the African diaspora, which is, the Caribbean, Latin America, but many of our brothers and sisters on the continent at home have no clue about this. Don't get it, don't get it in their curriculum. So that's number one. Unless they by accident connect with someone who starts to talk about these things, or get a tourist group that comes to look at the so-called enslaved castles in Ghana or Dahomey or Senegal. There's no information that's part of our educational process. You will not find that in Israel. They talk about their Holocaust in every school, right? That's part of the educational process. So for me, I had to look at how am I framing this to give us a more comprehensive view. And this is the African-centered format.
Mhm.
So looking at that, as they started to expand and expand and expand, and I said I had to separate between talk about contemporary issues like why is Snoop Dogg saying in 2016 that if you supported Colt 45, you were a fool, you were this, you were that, all kinds of negative stuff, and then in 2020 he supports Colt 45.
Mm.
How is that explained? How you have people who were in the Black Lives Matter leadership and in some cases active in during the pandemic suddenly change and want to support uh, before the pandemic rather suddenly change during the pandemic and want to support uh, Colt 45. I said, what is happening with our sense of justice? What is happening with our sense of value, right? And that made me go back and look at what is their foundation. None of them are practitioners of Ma'at. Ma'at is a ancient Kemetic or Egyptian value system that looks at principles that we must live by. Just like you have the 10 Commandments that you live by. Over 4,000 years ago, we had the principle of Ma'at. And these are not hocus pocus type of, craziness. The principles are justice, harmony, integrity or propriety, order, reciprocity, balance, and truthfulness. If you live those principles or try to live those principles daily, you are on the right path as a human being.
Mhm.
But if you deviate and find excuses for deviation on a consistent basis, you are not living the principle of Ma'at. You're misusing the principle of Ma'at. So I try to use that as my framework. And that helped me explain how people like Snoop Dogg, uh, Nelly, Sexy Red, countless others will do that. Then you have the elected public officials who are invested in maintaining their status, right? And maintaining their status means that they want to remain in, quote, leadership, elected leadership positions for as long as they can to mostly benefit themselves. So that's the principle that infects us with the neo-colonialism. I started writing on tracing that history. And when you go back to ancient Africa, that was a practice. There were boners in ancient Africa. And what is a boner? So that I don't mistake that. BONA stands for my acronym, my concept. Black, B is for black, O is for opportunist, N is for neo-colonialist, and A is for accommodationist. So you have a black opportunist, neo-colonialist, accommodationist. That's a bona. What is a bona? A bona is a person who puts themselves first before their family, their community, and their people. It's
Mhm.
about I, not the we.
Mhm.
It is about the I, not the we, which takes you out of the concept of ma'at. Because ma'at deals with the principle of justice, and not justice just for you, it's justice for every human being. It's about harmony, about every human being. It's not, well, I am Congressman so and so, I'm Counselor so and so, and therefore I have more rights than you. How can we live in harmony if you think you have more rights than me? It's about integrity. If you're saying, on the one hand, well, I'm going to do this because I'm elected to do this, and I don't need your advice or don't need your information, don't need to interact with you because I know better, then that order is your order, it's not the people's order.
That's
Right?
it. Mhm.
Reciprocity. Many of these politicians get caught up in this reciprocity because they think that if they give you their vote, if you're a business person and you want to have a highway going through a neighborhood or you want to build a building and they come to you and you said, yeah, I'll give you your vote, what you going to give me? That type of reciprocity is
Mhm.
anti our community. It does not establish harmony in the community. It establishes benefit for you, I, the individual, not the
Mhm.
community. And balance. How do we achieve balance in our lives, whether it's our health, whether it's our family, whether it's our work, right? Achieving
Mhm.
balance. Uh, do your best, be your best. And then truthfulness, the bottom line. If you, again, we're not perfect human beings. None of us are perfect human beings, but there's a
Mhm.
certain level at which truthfulness has to prevail. You
Mhm.
can't tell me that slavery was beneficial to all Africans when we suffered from enslavement. Right? You can't tell me that uh, the sun has no benefit to the earth. Therefore, let's obliterate the sun. You know, you can't. There's a certain level at which if you take what's yours, return what you borrow, pay for what you purchase, keep your word, be just and fair, practice the way. Again, those seven principles of Ma'at is a guidance for us to do every life. So I started
Mhm.
looking at all of these things to put it into a coherent way. And lo and
Mhm.
behold, I had to separate what the framework was going to be, how I conceive the Ma'afa, the African Holocaust, how I conceive who is at home and who's abroad. People will call their home their country, not Africa. I call Africa home and everywhere else that we are abroad. So those are the things that I have to, two of the little things that I have to put in place. Then you have the issue of how do we conceive what we mean to each other. That is a Africana framework which is conceived through Professor Carr and the K Nubia group of looking at an African framework. In the governance structure, the question we try to answer is what do we mean to each other? And if Odinga used that framework, he would ask a question, what do we mean to each other in the African Union? He didn't ask that question. He asked, what can I get out of this in the African Union? So those are the things that guide us in that way. So I looked at that Africana framework. What do we mean to each other? And then I started looking at what is the impact of the Bona through imperialism for Africans, colonial racism and capitalism to Africans, colonialism to Africans, and then the final phase that we're in now, neo-colonialism for Africans. The concept of imperialism started out of Europe, not only in ancient time with the Crusades and the Romans, but more later on by the Portuguese and the Spaniards going around the coast of Africa. But before that, you had a whole set of enslavement and war and invasion on the eastern coast and part of the northern coast of Africa by Arab Muslims. And that lasted for 13 centuries. 13 centuries. And you can't not look at that and say, oh, that doesn't mean anything. It means that from 650 AD to 1900, that's 13 centuries you had of the Arab Muslim invasion and slave wars. But on the Atlantic side, you have the transatlantic invasion and slave wars for roughly 400 years by mostly European, overwhelmingly European countries. So when you look at that comparison, you can see that was a Holocaust for us Africans. However, we have to not start our story in this trauma. So part of my examining how we explain things is not starting with, well, 1619, some Africans fell out of the sky into these ships and they landed in Plymouth. And, that's the history of Black people in the United States. False. False. And when you say what we mean to each other and you start that way, you start in trauma, but you also have your context, your history as an appendage to European history. They don't even count the indigenous people, right? And that's where I said, I cannot start there. I have to go back. So the concept of going back, at least on the Atlantic side, was, well, we didn't start off as slaves. Like Africa had a rich history before any European set its foot on there, either on the North Atlantic with the Romans and the Greeks, or on the West Coast with the Portuguese and the Spaniards, or in the South with the Dutch and the English. So I started looking at that concept to expand ourselves and redefine ourselves also.
Mm-hmm.
And the level at which I ended up with an essay. Well, I'm still finishing up with an essay of about 45 pages explaining just the framework, just concepts, right? When you say prisoner of war, it means that somebody, well, let me back up. I don't use the word slave anymore, right? You are enslaved, meaning you are part of a condition, a situation. A slave is a definition that's imposed upon you as though that's the only thing you are. And we're much more than that. Just look at our stories from ancient Kemet to today. So I dispel with the word slave and use prisoners of war. And this is the concept that Professor Robinson came up with. I was not the originator of this. But he's saying during wars, you were captured, some of us were captured, and then sold into slavery. Now, part of that enhancement happened when, some Europeans came and started offering trinkets and offerings that some groups groups in West Africa said, "Oh man, this is great. Yeah, this is shiny. This is gunpowder. This is this," and said, "Well, we need to keep this business going." It's like when crack came into the neighborhood. Only a few people did that, and once they saw that they could make money off it, crack was everywhere, right? That's part of
Mhm.
devaluing what we believe, what we mean to each other. Because if you mean something to each other, we won't practice that. So part of the
Mhm.
prisoner of war concept is that we became prisoners of war, got enslaved, and then landed in parts of Europe, in parts of the South America, in parts of the Caribbean, and in Central and North America. That concept, people are still shaking their head when I introduce it to them. Like, you can't conceive a prisoner of war. You only see like a contemporary, let's say a Black Panther person being a prisoner of war. Well, the concept is similar. In many cases, they trumped up charges against some of these Panthers, had the jury system that they control convict these people, and now they're in life as prisoners of war. Right? But they won't want to declare war. They want to say they're carrying out the law. It's their law. Even if you look at the way the laws are constructed, especially in the United States, Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 3 of the U.S. Constitution counts every African and indigenous person as three-fifths of a person. So what is considered the most revolutionary document produced on this side of the Atlantic in the United States started off by counting us as three-fifths of a person. And women, they didn't even count women. So you have even that dichotomy to address. But back to the principle of how we became prisoners of war, and then say that, well, we're not African anymore because we lost everything that is African in us on this side of the continent, of the ocean, of the Atlantic Ocean. False, again. And they say this because they will not learn, or they will not understand that someone else told you that story. And then you begin to believe it, you know? And part of our belief system has to be rooted in our values. The fact that we had documented so many rebellions, so many resistance against enslavement in not only United States, but I have 2 pages of documented resistance to enslavement and lynching by Africans in whether you want to say it's in Guyana, in Martinique, even in Puerto Rico, there were over 12 rebellions. Cuba, and of course the Haiti Republic establishment, one of the greatest accomplishment in the African Western diaspora. Haiti's independence in 1804 created a situation that the United States was able to buy France for pennies, and it was the largest land acquisition at that time of the United States by the purchase of the Louisiana territory. But that's
Mhm.
because France was being kicked in Haiti, in Hispaniola, not just Haiti, in the whole island. The Haitians kicked out the French, kicked out the Spaniards, and later on kicked out the Americans. So we have a debt that we owe Haiti. And then Haiti helped Simon Bolivar in South America try to establish the United States of in South America by abolishing slavery. And that was a condition under which the Haitian went and volunteered to help Bolivar. But then he betrayed them and did not abolish slavery in Haiti. So those are the little things that we need to consider in this our story.
Mhm.
Any Yeah, any other question that
Um,
I didn't explain or miss?
no, I don't think everything is just on point. I want to come back to the issue that you talked about, enslavement, and that
Hmm.
theory actually goes back to redefine the reason why some of our fellow brothers and sisters still owe or still hold the belief that, you know, Africans sold them into
Right.
slavery.
Right.
But that's going to be a topic for another day, because
Yeah.
if you look at the nature of the African, and you compare it even in our day life, you
Hmm.
who says Africans sold them into slavery, can you sell your child? It is not an African nature.
Right.
Of course, going into the researches that we also made, the history is different from what we know. We all know, number one, there was nothing. Honestly, there's some theories that say there was nothing that even happened. I mean, in ancient Africa is slavery. The reality was prisoners of war. I mean, if you look even in
Right.
Cameroon, you still have it in the history. The Bafut Wars, the Mancon Wars, the Bali Wars. These were resistant movement till
Hmm.
today. This was the resistance that built up those wars.
Right.
But if we don't study in our history, we would never find it. Like if you hear somebody said, oh, they, and we should not also be ignorant to the fact that we, first of all, on the continent, literally we had our own tribal wars. And what happened
Yes.
was
Right.
we also captured prisoners among ourselves from the neighboring village with which
Hmm.
we were fighting. Tribal wars. The tribal wars were just like fighting for land or property, or that kind of dispute, land dispute. And so when a neighboring village is win the other one, they're going to hold those that were caught on their land as prisoners of slaves, or prisoners of war. So even the theory, they learned every word from us.
Right.
Because when they came now and they were recruiting people, or taking the villagers, most of the villagers gave those people that they had already taken from the neighboring village as prisoners to work for them. And
Hmm.
so the theory of some of us, or some in the diaspora, saying that the Africans sold them to slave, is just because you don't know your history. Because if you're an African truly from the genes of it, you know you cannot sell your children. If you did it, if you do it, it means your ancestors did it. But if you cannot do it, what makes you believe that your ancestors did that? So there are a lot of lies embedded in every other thing that we believe. To
Right.
know that you're Pan African, to know that you're African, start by yourself. Once you start by yourself in what you believe in, then you know that's the way your ancestors lived. If your values have changed with time, then there's no way you can justify that, you were sold into slavery when you yourself cannot sell your child. The African is the
Hmm.
only person, or the only human being, that keeps the family together. They will never, I mean, even us young girls, we've seen it in other cultures, in different cultures. I don't want to call names, but we know it. Women who go literally and sell their girls into prostitution and all those things. These are not my words that I use, but that's a fact. But in an African content, even regardless of the pictures that they show, the poor women in the village or the poor people
Hmm.
in the village, no woman would give her child into prostitution.
Right.
That is against even just the normal norms of the culture. So the Afrocentric mind, or all the concepts that is because, of course, we just read sources too. These days everybody can put anything on the internet, Baba. And the AI and all this artificial intelligence that we are using without scrutinizing them going to be the biggest problems that we're going to have. If you are relying only on this information as a source, be very
Hmm.
careful. These systems are put there to manipulate your information. So if you ask your questions from these sources, I bet you the answers that you will get from it will be misleading. So a kind of a laziness is also creeping into us Africans, where we think that, oh, artificial intelligence and all this thing is going to, these are just tools, but you have to know the truth so you can be able to redefine the source. Because anything you give, they're going to give you, and you just pick it and package it there. You are on the wrong track. And the last thing that you said, Baba, that I noted was the issue of um, this what is it again? It just skipped up my mind. But anyway, I will come back to it. As a
Okay.
nutshell, everything that you have said, from the way we relate and from the way we function, that is African. So
Mhm.
if you get your theory from so much else, that should not be our point, isn't it, Professor?
Yeah. So I want to say we rely on AI, not AI. What do I mean by that? We rely on artificial intelligence and not on ancestral intelligence,
Eh, eh,
right? And if we talk about and
yes.
our AI is ancestral intelligence, not artificial
Mhm.
intelligence, because
AI,
the
ancestral
ancestral
intelligence.
connection is
Mm,
what guides us, one, and
mhm,
has the value to us. And if you
mhm.
only think that the value is in artificial intelligence, my brother and my sister, you're down the wrong path. You're on the wrong side of the world. And I hope you will come back home soon. And that's the way in which we see, and mind you, this is not a phenomena to Africans in the diaspora, meaning outside of Africa. This is also so embedded in our home in Africa, where you have so many of us, and I didn't even get to the contemporary part of Africa using this type of Bona experience, where you have leaders, so-called elected leaders, uh, saying that they're going to give this piece of land to the Chinese because they're going to build us a this and a that, and they get a cut of that money, and then what? Right. So I am not only saying that this is a phenomena with Europe, it's also a phenomena with anyone else that is not African. So I
Mm,
cautioned us to look at now the Chinese as the new, as the replacement imperialists in some cases. Now, I'm not saying in every case, in some cases, that want to replace the European imperialists. And we need to be mindful of that. I'm not saying don't do anything, but be mindful of it. You don't want to replace, it's like you're saying, I was a Democrat, now I'm a Republican. You're jumping from, to
mhm,
me, you're jumping from one plantation to another plantation, right? So it's important for us to, like you said, study, exchange not only information but ideas and concept and practices that balances us, but also moves us forward, right? Because every level at which we have moved forward has been because of someone who stepped forward and pushed us that way. So Marcus Garvey, as the leader of the largest self-determining self-determinant African-centered organization in the world, came from humble beginnings and had to travel all over, all over to establish himself and work with others to build this up. And some of us betrayed him. Right? Why is it that that betrayal was so hurtful to us after all these years, that it took not a not a black president of the United States to pardon him. Barack Obama pardoned over 120 people, could not see himself in 8 years pardoning Marcus Garvey, but it had to take Joe Biden to do that. Something is easy. Barack
mhm.
Obama would not have lost one vote from black people if he had done that, just signing that declaration. And he had 8 years to do it. Biden did it in 4. So we have to look at all of these type of behaviors and practices towards us and said, what do we mean to each other? So to me, it says Marcus Garvey didn't mean squat to him, to Barack Obama. But interestingly enough, uh, Martin Luther King traveling to Jamaica, I think it was in 62, if I'm not mistaken, praised Marcus Garvey for what he had done for Black people and uplifting us during that era, and became an anti-capitalist, right? So we have to look at how we evolve, how we evolve and how that impacts us. And I mean, there's so many cases throughout Africa that I can cite example. You know, the Israeli, the whole Palestinian stuff is another, but the Israeli government had a bedroom arrangement with with the apartheid government in South Africa, the apartheid government in South Africa, and then said, once we free South Africa, we're coming to the rest to free Africa. And you had 16 leaders, which I cite in my essay, 7 leaders in the eastern part of Africa, inviting the prime minister to come and speak to them. And then they traveled to Israel because they were going to get a few trinkets of, military support and intelligence support and some other type of support from the Israeli at that time during apartheid. So when South Africa takes Israel to the ICC, the International Criminal Court, because it says when we were fighting for sovereignty in South Africa, the Palestinians supported us, right? Even Israel supported the South African apartheid for the early 70s, where it trained certain guerrillas. And then it started turning against South Africa once it saw that it was going to be Black led, right? So it's those type of information that we need to be able to analyze in our interests. We're not talking about going against and attacking someone else's country, right? But this places Africa at the center, and that's my Pan-Africanist framework. It places Africa at the center of the world, right? And we look at it from that perspective. So when I look at imperialism, I look at it from that perspective. When I look at colonialism, I look at it from that perspective. Doesn't mean I don't examine the other impacts that imperialism and colonialism and neo-colonialism has had in other parts of the world. But certainly my primary focus is on the African perspective. And, people in Black faces in high places will not free us. That's a quote, not from me, but from Sister Ruha Benjamin, who gave a commencement speech at what's the female Spelman College last year. They were giving her honorary PhD. She's a graduate of Spelman as well. I urge you to look at her. She writes a lot about Blacks in technology. She's out of Princeton. But Black faces in high places will not free us. Doesn't mean that they can help, but certainly they're not going to take and I cite a quick example. As much as Kamala Harris did for the Democratic Party during her last run, she could not bring herself to say, I want the Palestinian to speak at the Democratic National Convention in August 2024. They couldn't even speak, as though their position on Palestine and Gaza was not legitimate. What does that tell us when you had the authority to do that? If she had said that, it would have made a difference in Michigan for her. But instead, she went along with, well, we'll talk to him on the side. We would treat this as a side issue, not a life and death issue that Palestinians are facing. Right? And that reminded me of the 1964 Democratic Convention in Atlantic City, when Fannie Lou Hamer would not even invited to speak at the Democratic National Party in challenging the Mississippi delegation. So we have those type of processes that we have to look at and examine. And then you wonder, well, Why people? There were more voters who stayed home. 80, they said anywhere from 86 million to 89 million voters, eligible voters, stayed home from the 2024 election. And most of those voters were registered as Democrats. If she had gotten just 5 million of that 86 million, 5 million, which is less than 1%, she would have won the the uh, the Eurosettler presidency in the United States. But no, she raised a fantastic amount of money, right? In a short period of time, never been done before. But what did that bring us? People who now are some people who are now regretting having voted for the other way. But I'm saying that's part of the process that we have to look at and hold fast to our perspective and our interest, because everybody else is doing that. Everybody else is doing that. And even the people who are the most vocal supporters of Cult 4547, like Baron Donalds and this other elected official from Texas, they get nothing. I think, you know, when you talk about representation, where are all these people? What position did Snoop get in the Code 4547 administration? So those are the things that I think some of the things that we need to look at. There's the issue coming up with Guyana and Venezuela around the oil production that was found on Guyanese territory, and yet, United States is now willing to send more money to Guyana because anything that's against Venezuela is something that they want. Same thing in the Caribbean. I found it fascinating that most of the Caribbean island countries are not sovereign countries. Most of the Caribbean island countries are not sovereign countries. They're part of the Commonwealth for those English speaking. They're part of the Netherlands extended coverage. So we have to look at those things. I think Barbados and now Jamaica, and I think St. Vincent may be the only three that are sovereign countries, meaning they don't appeal to the Queen and the High Court in England. And Martinique and the French side is the same thing. They have to go appeal to France's court. So those are some of the connections, what I call connections, that we have to look at from a Pan-African perspective, but in our interest. Right? We cannot just go along for the I, meaning what can I get out of this? A lot of time people ask you, like, okay, if I do this for you, what am I getting out of it? We don't ask, what are we getting out of it oftentimes, or unfortunately. And that's the practice that we have to call people on now more than ever. Looking for that island part. So this is just some of the things that I have. I call, for instance, the joining of capitalism and racism. I call that the conjoint twins, evil twins. Why is that? Capitalism kind of, how you have twins born that are joined together either at the head or at the body. You can't separate them now. Racism and capitalism, they are so intertwined that you can say, well, I'm a black capitalist. Right? So we have to look at those type of phenomena that address our stories in this world. These are our stories. And for us, capitalism and racism are so intertwined that they are conjoined as evil twins. Right? And you can't say, well, I am I am for black people, and if Code 45 calls you and said, I want to give you a position to run the immigration, okay, I'll do it. And he's hurting black people by his immigration policy. How can you be for black people? But because it's going to put some money in your pocket and give you status, you will do that. And again, that's outside of the principle of Ma'at. When you look at the way that 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 happens. Um, the next essay that I'm doing, finishing up, talks about how do we use some of the principle of Ma'at or the Nguso Saba to measure people's value, but also their practice. Right? And when you talk about Kuji Jakulia, which is self-determination in the Nguso Saba principle, if you get called a name that is not part of your definition, why are you accepting it? You're not practicing your self-determination. So the whole MAGA Mawa movement, and MAGA means make America great again, and Mawa, MAWA, means make America white again. And that movement personifies his value system, meaning Code 45. Those are his value system that he's pushing down on everyone. Right? And if you ask a question, when was America great? Most people can't speak to it, but they speak to it from their perspective. Like the 1950s was great for some of these, for many of these European settlers, right? Because they were able to buy a house, move out to the suburb, buy a car, send their kids to private school, go to summer camp. That was great for them. But where were black people, indigenous people in the United States at that time? Was that great for them? But they're not counted that way, right? Because that's not those people's perspective. When we look at Ujima, collective work and responsibility, when the whole Black Lives Movement started, there was a sense of moving in that direction. But then you had some of the leadership benefiting financially from the guilt that some corporation and some individuals will reach into their pocket and give them money to establish a foundation. And then the foundation money was not shared among all the BLM chapters throughout the country. The faith, Imani, how does faith propel us in the way we move in this world? When you endorse Magamawa, what are you saying about your faith in the world? That they're going to make America great again? For whom? Not for us. It must be for you personally. So that's where the I come in for the bonus. So those are those three examples that I cite for how we can use our value system to propel us in the way that speaks to our interests, but also moves us forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Wonderful. I think everything is clear on point, and I can see the chat family actually picking and reiterating these value systems that we all need to be able to stay African. Now we see the challenge is even getting more. Um, we
Sharper,
have
yes.
now we have the distraction going on in South Africa, like when the other person says, a brother is a terrorist and declare him a terrorist. And now we see the upheavals again. We see the uprising between the white community, the Africans, and the South Africans and the Bantus. I say it, we want to put it the South Africans. And so now it's coming back again that the Africans are questioning and like, it's just a movement again, a distraction. If you
Mhm.
want to fix your problems with Ukraine, why do you have to distract the others? Like, literally, are you the president elected for the United States or to be the police of the war?
Mm.
But like I see one of the chat members here said, I know everything is working out right now for us because, of course, when you measure what power is, for a global leader to leave his own focus on what he's supposed to do, to go and split out, to spill out the little population of Africans in South Africa to be against each other. That's a
Mhm.
failure of a
Mhm.
system. That's what most Africans, it's very clear to say it. You see, the critics online are beginning to question, where is the sovereignty? Where is the global world power? Where is the peace and all these United Nations charters and this? Where is it?
Yeah.
Where is it being implemented? The same person that preaches peace is the same person that is the gun. So I think there's a lot of research work going on, and people are getting really educated about, being betrayed,
Mhm.
betrayed by something that you once believe in, by something that you once thought is a value that you could live on, and automatically or naturally is just something else. But I want to thank you so much, Baba, for coming out to actually, from a point of view, the way you articulate, the way you state your case. And thank you for that document which you shared with us. I have it because I think somebody was asking, Dr. Yuven was asking the manuscript. I said, I have it. Anybody who wants it, we can share it. It's really massive. It's much. What he's putting is just picking out some points out there.
Right.
I
And
went.
what I would like to, Dr. Tata, is if someone you can share my email address for me to get feedback uh, from those who read it, because this is an excerpt from the draft. This is not the complete essay. Is okay,
Mhm.
but I would definitely appreciate and welcome comments and criticisms and review of what I have said.
If they want it, this is Nubian for sure at gmail.com, isn't it?
Correct. That's correct.
All right. I just put it in the chat for anybody that wants it. They can follow it. They can follow you on it to get that done. So we're rounding up, and do you want to close up?
Yes, I'd like to say that first of all to thank you again for this special invite. This has made my whole month of Black History.
Oh,
Just getting this invite. Thank you. And I thank Brother Charles Asukile also for connecting me, because I asked him to approach you to uh, give me, to see if I would get the opportunity. So I'm very indebted to you for that. Um, I want to echo a phrase that one of a Jegna, who is considered a person learned, but also who has gone through struggle and survived and still teaches us um, that. Oh boy, where is this name? Uh, Dr. Jeremiah Wright. I don't know. Some of you may remember him as the Obama's former pastor, who Obama threw under the bus and had to leave his church after they criticized him because Jeremiah Wright was too righteous for them. That's how I'm going to phrase it. He was too righteous for these Magamawa people. He says back in a and it's on YouTube. I in my essay I will give you the link. But in 2015 he said, "quote When fear trumps faith, believers forget." Let me say it again. When fear trumps faith, believers forget. That is a guiding and important principle that we need to remember, because we're in a time of when fear is being created again in a very accelerated way, in a very chaotic way, that we think, oh, what am I going to do? I, America is all I have. No, it is not all that you have. It is a part of what you have. And if you connect yourself to this Eurosettler republic, remember, this was settled, America was settled by removing indigenous people. America was settled by war against indigenous people. America was settled by bringing enslaved Africans to this country to work for free and not giving them any reparations. America was settled by bringing Chinese labor and exploiting them for their efforts. America was settled by misusing and not giving women the right to own property, the right to vote. So don't talk to me about the righteousness of America being great again. But you have a place in the world. It is not America is the be all and the end all. There are pluses and there are minus. But you haven't even given yourself the openness to explore anything else. So how do you know nothing else exists? And next to last, I would say that one of my persons that I follow in terms of the way he explains stuff and gives us uh, uh, a different view of the world is the Pan African lawyer Brian Kagoro, who's from I think Zimbabwe. He reminded us that boners on the motherland, functioning in a neo-colonial era, they don't always value their countries as places of knowledge and are still suffering from inferiority complex and wait for the approval of the imperialists. So we have that type of practice at home on the continent, and we have that practice here and in the West Indies and in Central America. Okay. And I will lastly ask also people to consider looking at K Nubia, which is another K narrative, and K Nubia, which is another uh, framework like yours that talks about our interests. And it's a group, it's an international group, it's a Pan African group that go online and you can type in, what is it? No, In Class with Car. It's free on YouTube. They have been doing this almost 5 years now, starting in the pandemic. In Class with Car, CARR. And it comes on, they're up to 258 episodes. You can pick any episode on any topic. And they do it, Dr. Carr does it together with Karen Hunter on that show. In Class with Carr. I urge you to join. You can see those things for free, but there's also a membership fee. And also encourage anyone who is not yet Pan African DTV to join the Pan African DTV and support them so that we can have these type of avenues available to us. If we don't do it, no one else will. So that's the importance that I think we have, and we show that to our as part of our legacy and to those who come after us, and make sure that we can continue this, because surely we need to continue this. So I thank you, Dr. Tata, and I thank those who gave me the time to listen, and hope to, when I publish, I want to come back and do my uh, presentation with you again for giving me this time. And I hope I bring you a thousand more followers.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been an honor to have you Of course, like you said, when we asked, we received. So I also want to thank Brother Charles for bringing this
Yes.
across. And we ought to have done it yesterday, but because of the AU
No,
elections, we shifted for
today
today.
was perfect. Today was perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Of course, immediately you post or you finish the publication, we'll be happy to have you again. And
Yes, definitely.
yes, and we continue the mission work. So thank
You're
you.
you are my
Thank
first to do that. You're gonna be first for me to come to you.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm honored. It's always a pleasure and a priority to serve. Thank you so very much.
Thank you
Yeah.
and peace and blessings to
Okay.
you. Oh,
Peace and blessings. Good night and good day for you. Good night for us.
yes, yes.
Right. Bye. And thank you for all our listeners and Pan African Daily TV followers and family. Thank you for coming in. Of course, today, we don't work on Sunday, but it was urgent for us to be here tonight. And of course, the professor reached out to me or the scholar and requested. He's been following us since we started Pan African Daily TV and always thought that maybe he's not in the category of the scholars to come live on Pan African Daily. But that was just an illusion. On Pan African Daily, we are open to everyone that has a good story, a lecture to teach us about Pan African, to continue to remind us to oil our heads when we are tired. So if you're one of those persons, one of those scholars who have time or have a story to share with us, if we have time, we're gonna host you because, as you know, we are coming up. We're currently in the midst of doing a huge preparation for our event in Germany, and we've been inviting all of you to join this event. It's going to be an explosive 25 edition celebration of the projects that my organizations and I have been doing here in Germany for the past 25 years. And we are so proud of our work. And if you want to know truly who we are, be a part of this exhibition. So we already been talking about it, but more is still coming about it. I want to thank the East African bloggers that have picked the events by themselves and they're already translating it into Swahili. And so if you see a flyer like this, it comes from us. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the flyer for artists, and we have a lot that will be coming up. And this one definitely is from us, the craft fair exhibition. So it's just more than just an exhibition, just more than just a cultural festival. It is really about celebrating 25 years of African unity and excellence while we prepare for the future. That is exactly what all of us in this mission have been doing around without being conscious of the fact that we're actually doing something that is building a legacy for the next generations to come. So I'm so proud of our work in Germany and I can't wait. I also like to thank the delegations that are already signing in from the Caribbean. Brother Jan is signing it with a delegation of at least 4, but they still thinking that they could make it with a delegation of about 10 people to represent the Caribbean. And so they're connecting the other communities, from Antigua, Barbuda, and all that to be able to represent with a delegation. I mean, he was here, so he knows a little bit of the event up to what is coming now. So there are going to be a lot of sessions. And, though we look so relaxed, as I can say, though we look so relaxed, but we are sleeplessly spending time, putting up information together, coming up, and we want to put one of the biggest exhibitions that okay, when I say one of the biggest exhibitions, of course, one of the biggest trade fair exhibitions that would happen in Germany. We want to put out the colonial footprint through an exhibition, right? Through a picture exhibition, German footprint in Africa, particularly in Cameroon and East Africa, because that's actually where there were Tanzania and Cameroon. So we want to actually put out um, these exhibitions to be able to tell this story in another format, right? So there's really going to be a lot that will be happening, in the first weekend of June, from the 5th to the 8th, Thursday the 5th to the 8th. But we're going to see delegations coming in already from the first. So if you want to take out that period, just take a week off. All right. So you can arrive, relax, help us also to build the Pan-African village. It's a huge arena, and we need volunteers. We need a lot of volunteers. I mean, like work from home volunteers. Like I said, you see the flyers, I share them all, or the team that is designing the flyers and all that, they share it. We're going to be sharing even the gala conference, the VIP, and all the stories. So it's really a 25 years of existing in a strange, I'm telling you, in an urge, totally like double sides of who we are, the true opposite of who we are, but to be able to put up such a unity platform, which is now the largest in Europe, of course, a diaspora platform, and particularly in Germany. So we're looking forward to your support. We need your support. Honestly speaking, I have never gone through the process of thinking that now I need help. Of course, we've been giving and giving and giving. We've given to Africa, we've given to humanity, we've given to all aspects of our life. But right now is the time when we really call for help. We need your support as a volunteer, whatever thing you can do. Even if you're flying in, you're not just coming to enjoy, you're coming to work. So join us on this historic event in Germany. And it's going to be one of the first exhibitions. And it's an exhibition, like I said, to show to actually show the footprints. And we're going to work with the German archive system. It's not like they are the stories that we have to frame with ourselves. So we're looking forward to work also in these various countries to be able to get the archives from the museums, from the library, to do this massive exhibition. And through that exhibition, we're going to invite schools all over Germany, and even Europe to visit that 4-day exhibition. Telling us stories is not just only here on Pan-African Daily or getting these lectures, but there's a lot that has been on the ground that we don't know. And sometimes I begin to say the people that actually were visitors, like the Germans, they definitely know a lot of things that we don't know about ourselves. You remember, like if you go into a country and you take their artifacts, for instance, you loot it and you divided that country. So actually the original boundaries of that country. Actually how the people were together. Like what we see in East Congo today, and we begin to say it's a German colonial and British project. So most of the colonizers, for whatever business that we're doing on the continent of Africa, to be honest with you, they know so much about us than us. And they have archives, they have a documentary, they have pictures. And now it's the time that we're saying, now it's if we are moving into this era of African heritage and identity and studies and this, why not? We need this archive. So we want to collaborate with any of you who understands or who know in your countries, whether it's in East Africa or in West Africa or Cameroon, exactly where the footprints of the Germans were, because we're hosting this for Germans. We're hosting this for the community of Germans to learn our story, to hear our story, to see it from their own perspective. Okay. So it's not something that we're going to go on this war of decolonization by ourselves, because it takes two. It took two people. It took them to come to us and did all the partitioning and everything. And with them, we're going to reconstruct Africa again. We're not going to sit and say, no, we have to, it has to be ourselves. So, but anyways, I want to thank you. Like I said, continue to follow this, the progress of this project through the website, our organization website, or on the festival website, as we begin to update informations every day. I've been putting here every day in the chat, theafricawewant.com is the organization, the Africa We Want, our organization, and Africa Festival and the Africa We Want is actually the platform of the festival. And the conference is also coming. So the conference page too would also be live anytime soon. So I want to thank you very much, Soto Warrior. Thank you. You said I'm late. Yes, I know you're really late. You're just joining now. You're joining when the class is shutting down, bro. That's not funny. Okay. Now you really know you're late and you come and say, oh, am I late? You're late. I'm so sorry. You missed the beautiful lectures and points that, Baba Nijala brought here. But I think you have to go back again, right? You have to go back again and begin to sort out your missed classes to not be left alone. Yes, of course. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, sisters. Thank you. Oh, Banker said, love the hairstyle today. Looks, sister, very natural. Thank you so very much. I mean, we're always great the way we look. Sometimes we disguise a lot. This work is not easy, as you know. So when you see us in any format or what, don't say anything. It's good. Everything we do is fine. All right. Everything we do is just fine. Just leave us like that. Now, when you see the other cooks, they wear the white and the things. What do you think they're doing? Sometimes we need to be very clever. There are a lot of things that we do because we are, yes, we know what we're doing. We're not just going to, make the mistakes of the past or something like that. So anyhow that the ancestors want us to portray, how we want to exhibit, how we want to do, it's all upon them. But just know that we're beautiful from our heart and our soul, and our work that we do is not actually only about us itself, but it's carrying a whole generation of stuff that we need to know. So please support us in any way you can. Give us more ideas. Also fund us to be able to celebrate this in an African way. Another aspect that we're going to do about the stories is the newspapers that have been writing terrible sort of stories about the organization and its platforms. So you see that when we talk about changing the narratives, we're just going to put it as an exhibition. When they say exhibition means what? Exhibit. That's a proof. All right. Exhibition comes from the word exhibit something. So we want to also exhibit the craft shaft, the how do I say craft shaft? Oh my God, because I'm mixing German and all these kind of stories. You see, I already told you the other day about the essence of our craft, and craft simply means the power. So you see, our exhibition is called Omoja Craft Fair. Omoja, unity, power of Africans fair. That's just what it means. The Umoja Craft Fair want to exhibit the handmade craftsmanship, the power of how we started the carvings, what they refer today as artifacts. So we want to actually bring some carvers from Africa. We are not really promising a lot because of visas. We know how they're blocking every single thing, particularly Germany. To get into Germany now is like you have to go to heaven, right? So, but we are working on those exhibitions to get these handcraft men who do the handwork to be on the ground and to carve these things, and to actually, we have a forum on it, the importance of our craft to the African spirituality. So this exhibition, we're really looking forward to put everything that we've been talking about. And every day I sleep and I get a new vision and I put it down and we put it in the team how we want the exhibition to look like. We're even expanding the space that we usually had to have at least 20,000 square meter. To really represent the Africa that we want, the magnitude, the space in itself, and to put the small pieces in an exhibition form. But it's the year of justice and reparation. And the year of justice and reparation means we have to present ourselves the way we know we are. And so Omoja Craft Fair and exhibition is just more than that. So we have the exhibition, we have the business forums, and then we have the festival. The festival is just a part of it. The craft fair and the exhibition is where our heart is. And then presenting the 25 years of our work, of our tireless work, of our sleepless work, something that we're so, so proud of. I cannot wait for that moment to come. But it all takes all of us to be able to bring out something that is powerful and something that is great. The last thing I want to share with you in the last 5 minutes before I go, you see, my vice president is always saying, "Stop speaking German." That's my vice president. He's always with us and he's supporting everything that we're saying. I just hope that next week when we'll be so um, um, like when we will actually be heading more into the preparations, that he could be here. He would be in studio live with me to talk about it. We're really going to focus more on the work that we have to do, because we have just 3.5 months now, and most of our shows is actually going to be on this exhibition and how you can attend, how you can participate, how you can support even from being where you are. Okay, this is history that we're writing down in Germany. I mean, Africans in Germany, and in just a short while. So another thing is, if we can do that, we can do it anywhere. We can do it anywhere. Also think about putting out this kind of exhibitions, because when we talk about reparation and justice means we can exhibit, show us the facts, show us the examples, okay? Show us exactly what we're talking about. So I think it's very important for us to support such an initiative as we've been doing to every other person, okay? It's time to give back to Pan African Daily. It's time to give back to Dr. Susan Tata and her organization. It's time to give back for the work that we've laid down our life for more than 30 years to do selflessly, without salaries, volunteering our time, our resources, and everything. It's just time for us, not giving back to me because it's just all about me, but at least to showcase the work of Africans in Germany. It has not been easy. In your spaces it's more easier. You already grow in the community where you see us, but you can imagine us, it's a challenge. And we're so thankful to all these communities also that hosted us, and the German communities, the towns. They're very supportive. I mean, the normal day-to-day people are very supportive. And yes, we have to fix this colonial past together. So I want to thank you. I'll be putting out an audio, it an audio and just a picture on it, because I really want, we're not taking any calls right now. We're closing. I think we can host you, the caller, next time, anytime you want to come live. This is we're sharing very vital information right here now. So we're not taking calls. I'm very sorry. Okay. The one last thing I want to say, I'm going to put the speech of the outgoing AU chairperson and a voice note. I'm going to put the speech because I want you all to listen. I want that speech to be on Pan African Daily TV as a document, because he explained a lot of things behind the scenes. And I think he really breathed out to explain it, because it was his, he was going out and thought he should actually be able, he should lay it out for the next generation and for the incoming AU chairperson. And like I said, these are criteria on which we really have to look at the way we look at our union. We look at the challenges that this leadership is going on, is facing right now. If you look at all the whole systems, like he said in one paragraph that I really wept when he said, you can imagine when you inherit a term of office that comes with COVID and the global crisis, that comes with the wars that we are fighting today, that comes with challenges, in building the Pan-African spirit. You can imagine. So sometimes when we talk about the past, when the world was stable, we totally really forget that things have changed a lot. Since 2020, at the breakout of COVID, the world has never been the same. And then them sitting on that kind of high plateau, they have to deal with the Palestinian question, they have to deal with the Ukraine wars, and everything that is happening in the world affects the continent of Africa. And you can imagine taking leadership during that time, when you take leadership 1 year after the world collapsed. What are you going to do? It was so emotional for me. not just emotional from a point of view, but from a statement. When you listen and you're a true African, like this speaker said tonight, the truth in our heart, you can feel it. And so when we take some of these theories, as we say, we're trying to redefine ourselves, you don't have to look for yourself or your Africanness out of you. Me, I feel Africa the way I act. So if somebody told me, like I said, somebody told me that my father sold me into slavery, that's somebody telling me that. So the first thing I find it from myself, can I sell my children? If I can sell my children, then I believe my father could have sold me. But if I cannot, because I'm the extension of the ancestors, like he said, it's not AI, artificial, it is ancestral intelligence. So if you don't have that ancestral intelligence into you, you believe anything that anybody tells you. The devil will come and tell you, oh, you look this, you believe. But if you know and you listen and you know that you're an extension of your ancestors, there's no way. There's no way you have to go and look for your history. Let us just get this very clear. Whether you want to belong to Africa or you don't want to belong to Africa, or you think that you're not part of Africa, that's your business. I mean, like, people are really tired of trying to babysit each other. Don't belong. You like to belong anything you want to belong. It's the same thing I say on Pan African Daily. I'm not here to work any salary for anybody. If you like to follow Pan African Daily, you follow. If you say, no, this is not a platform for me, hey, please, there are millions of platforms. But what I know is what I do. And nobody influences us. Nobody tells us who we bring as a guest here. Nobody tells us how we conduct what we conduct, because it's ancestral intelligence that push our work. We do it according. There are times we plan a guest and we don't come live. But we are not a conservative media to begin to explain to you, oh, this guest did this. No, just understand. We are in the space of knowledge. If something doesn't work the way we plan it to be, trust your ancestors. They know always the best. They know everything. At the right time, they're going to separate the wolves from the sheep. We know it. So whatever thing happens on Pan African Daily, in our work, in our private lives, even for you, if you have the AI, the ancestral intelligence in you, you can never be wrong. Except you want to tell me your ancestors were wrong. It's the same thing with the leadership on the continent. If we don't trust the leaders and feel their pain without them saying it, we can sit here and relax. We are comfortable. We don't have all the challenges that we have. Most of us are behind the cameras and typing on the fake names, and you don't show your face out. Nobody knows you. It's easy to just say anything. All right. We have to unite behind the common interest of ourselves. Nobody is going to do it. If you like, you support whatever system, support whatever thing you want to support. That's your part of business. Nobody is going to force you to become African when you're not. You can believe whatever thing you want to believe. It's the freedom of choice of being. But on the Pan-African Daily TV, I'm sending this message particularly not to my audience or in the chat here. I know exactly who I'm sending these messages to, and and you're watching me. So we are not here for any propaganda, anything. We are not here for misleading people. All our scholars, they come here with the love to share their history with one of us, to share their experiences with one of us. Whether they are qualified or they are not qualified, that's your business. Nobody has any right to judge them or to qualify or to unqualify them. And we're not going to disrespect anyone. It's the same thing. If we cannot respect the house of the leadership, how can we even respect ourselves? How can we even respect our homes? So please, my fellow Africans, we have to be more wise today than the days of our ancestors. And if we say we learn from our ancestors, look at the turbulences in the world today. If we say we challenge the leadership on the continent right now, look at what we've just gone through in our individual lives in the space of 5 years. Look at your life. Put a timetable of your life from the time of COVID till this time. What are the things that have happened in your life? For some, they just backslash. Most passed away, okay, they're resting. But for most people, it has taken them a whole reboot of their system to become the new versions of what they are. And you think the continent is not? You think the continent is not? You go to Ethiopia, mighty Ethiopia. They are struggling to put their structures and everything, but they are fighting wars at every level. Every single African country that rises up has the biggest challenge on itself. And you point fingers at your leaders and say they are puppets? I beg, we have to stop some narratives that come with us. Let us respect ourselves. The way you call your father is the way you are. And if the leadership is important to us, then we start from our own homes. We start from our own self. I think we have to learn these new things. When I navigate our platforms and I see young people, when I push out a post and you see the way young people speak, I have more respect for them because they're thinking, they think along. Some could just be out of frustration or say some words. But on Pan-African platforms, whether it's our Facebook pages or Pan-African Daily TV, our language is unique and clear. We don't have arrogance. We are not abusive. We don't even challenge each other's thought. And that is what leadership is all about. You don't need to earn any college degree or any professional degree. The way you respect yourself and respect others, the way you treat your fellows, each and every one of us, is responsibility enough. Things I will not expect you to do to me, I won't do to you. Or you don't expect me to do, I won't do. That's just leadership. Leadership is nothing like sitting on a position and stuff like this. Okay? So I will put that voice of that speech if I have time, and I will send it up to us for us to see. And we begin to see the spirit of what our brother was talking about today, of the Kenyan MPs shamelessly going to say, we're going to exit because of that. Is Africa your entitlement? Is Africa your piece of cake that belongs only to you? Because you think the politics of the stomach and the politics of legacy, because my father's father was this, I have to be this. Things are changing. And like he said, the young people in Kenya are the majority. And they understand the game. When we shared the post, they were the ones that were even being the loudest to talk and to condemn that kind of attitude. You're not African because you're born in Africa. You're African because African is born in you. So thank you so very much. We're going to get up. Yes, we'll be coming live because this week is really about the AU, the planning, also other sessions and stuff like that. And we'll be corresponding to find out what is really going on. I think we have to focus our attention. We know more about ourselves, but we don't know more about the leadership on the continent. We have no clue the ideas or the wars and the battles that they're fighting. It's terrible. Just imagine us at small levels where we don't even have responsibilities, where we don't have a whole continent of 54 countries to network and to work with each challenges in any country. Now, come on, give me a break. Let us pray for them. Pray for the leadership of the continent. Regardless of what is going, play your part. Don't be the judge. I do what I do, I mind my business, and I just play my own to contribute. Whatever who is doing, they're going to get it. They're going to get their karma, they're going to get their whatever, their gains in whatever way. But I just do my own. Yes, thank you, John Africa. Pan-African TV is a home of truly Pan-Africanists because we are not here to collect church gifts or to force people into membership because we have to. Even the memberships that you keep signing, we don't even see where it goes to. It definitely goes to I mean the one on YouTube, it definitely goes to for YouTube. Okay, and that's not what is keeping us. If that was what is keeping us, we'll not be doing anything. I will not be doing it for 30 years today. So come to Germany, see our work, and we keep the work going on. So thank you very much. I just had to pull it longer because we're walking in the background. I don't know when I'll be coming live again. So you stay safe, peace and blessings and love. And I thank you each time for always coming by. And we see us on Tuesday. All right. Good night. And thank you for all your support. Thank you for your engagement. Bye. Thank you.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.